but we think we've identified all the edges pretty well. And the size of this palace is just slightly larger than the footprint of the White House in Washington, D.C. It's a good-sized building, and this was as well. So we're down to, this is the level. If this is the level that was destroyed by an airburst, and we dug through, these are all down on the floors, we dug through very close to a meter, 3 feet, and in some places a little more, of ash and broken up mud bricks and disintegrated mud bricks and just all kinds of broken pottery. About 3 feet of that to get down to those floors. So we got the floors down there, but then you can see this really clear layer. And it's real clear there, but you can see it goes there, and it comes across over there, and it comes across over here. This is the top of the destruction debris. There's actually the floor, the top of the floor. We dug even beneath it to see what was below. This is the top of the destruction debris in this location, just a little more, that's a meter stick, just a little more than a meter. This thing was just, and the whole area, the whole palace, when we dug this, it was that same level all the way across. It was very, very obvious, very, very clear, and so we came to understand that this is the top level of the destruction debris. These are the stone foundations. There's mud brick on top of the stone foundation there, but these are the stone foundations, and then above them was in fact mud brick. So it wasn't stone walls that were being dismantled, it was mud brick walls. Makes a little difference in one sense with the what you're dealing with. But so these are the tops of the stone walls, then there's mud brick on top, and now this is a later, in fact, this right here was built in the time of Moses and Joshua. And I think, we think it's right, that Mo and Josh hung out there, that our site in their day was called Abel Shittim. And we think that this was a building that was there in their day, and they burnt it down. This is foundation underground. They burnt that building down, and we uncovered amazingly cool stuff. And we think it was, this was the work of Moses and Joshua as they left. They could have burned it down when they arrived, because they're coming down from the mountains in the east, then they come down to this area. They're going to be at Abel Shittim for a few months, less than a year, 6 months at the most. And then they're going to cross over. So they could have, when they came down, they could have destroyed the building. I'm sure whoever the people were there, they left before, they could see them coming. Thousands, they could see them coming, they took off. So they probably didn't have to deal with anybody, and they could have just burnt the building right down then, but why not use it for 6 months? This is right on top of the mound. You can see everything all around. It's a great strategic location, and I would imagine Mo and Josh hung out there, and that lower tell that I showed you, we had the upper tell and the lower tell. The lower tell is probably where they put the tabernacle, and that's probably where the Israelite tribes camped around that. And Mo and Josh, whether they stayed there at night, somebody would have done security from up there. But it's an amazing thing. But this destruction probably came from them. It's the right time, and it's the right place for where they would have been at that time. So we think probably it was. Can't prove it. But now we're going back down, because we didn't come to talk about their destruction. We want to talk about this destruction. So this is the destruction of the Middle Bronze Age palace at Tal el-Hammam. So these are two volunteer diggers. This is one of our grad students, and he's in charge of this area. I don't know how well you can see, but there is just broken pottery just thrown up against this wall. There's a stone wall and then a mud brick wall on top of the stone wall, right around here, both sides. And these folks were uncovering just a horde of broken pottery. It was all smashed up, but it was just over a dozen vessels. Just another look at what they were finding. And so so this was, as you said, the service wing. This is part of the kitchen. There were 4 ovens found in this area, clay ovens where you build a dome and you put fire inside, and then you can also cook. You could heat bread, make bread, put flour on the outside or even on the inside. You could set a pot on the top, which had an opening, so you could use that for. We think this was part of the kitchen, a special room in the kitchen for the royal palace. That it was all part of the palace, but for the king lived on the north side. Interesting enough, I didn't show the pictures, but we've got 2 infant jar burials underneath the floor of this space right here. There's no way that the king was burying his kids under the floor of the kitchen. So we're guessing that this must have been the burials of children of women who were working there in the kitchen. Probably the moms always had the dream of their daughters working with them in the palace. Probably pretty decent gig. And so, their daughters would follow them in their tradition. So maybe, we don't know. I can only speculate. This is where anthropology comes in, and we try to think things we know from the present and from the past about human activities and say, well, maybe this is what they were thinking and doing when we don't have any direct evidence. So probably the mothers gave birth. One was very tiny. The other was a little older, but still infant. Technically, anthropologists date at 1 year, you're no longer, you're an infant until 1 year. And then everything changes, and they were both under a year's age, as far as we could tell. So they were probably the children of ladies. We couldn't tell if they were girls or boys, children of the ladies, and those bones have yet to be analyzed carefully. So Genesis 19:24-26, this is the destruction of Sodom. Now we've been talking about el-Hammam. Now we're looking at the destruction of Sodom in the Bible. The Lord rained down burning sulfur, is the one translation, on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So a little funny phraseology, but that's what it says. So the Lord rained down from the sky. It's celestial, not terrestrial. From the sky, burning sulfur. I don't like the translation sulfur. It's not. That's not what the Hebrew word means. It's the standard term. We're trying to look for something that would be burning, some kind of material that would come out in the sky, and so they just use the word sulfur. The word brimstone. It's an old English term for sulfur. So we think about fire and brimstone. It's the Hebrew actually does better with molten and burning. So it was molten and burning stuff that God rained down from the sky. So that's what the Bible says. And then, of course, it goes on to say it just wiped out everything. And in the midst of it, Lot's wife looked back. She held back. She stayed in the blast zone and became a pillar of salt. Now, this is a phenomenological language. This is what you see, what you think, what you see. This is not a technical thing. God is not trying to make Moses speak in technical terms of physics. This is just, she looks like a pillar of salt. So she held back, stayed in the blast zone. The blast zone probably came from the west, and that would mean bringing Dead Sea water. And if you know anything about the Dead Sea, it's the saltiest place on the face of the earth, except for Salt Lake City. And so this boiling, steaming hot water would have come up on her and would have just captured her instantly. She would have been dead instantly, and was just covered with this water. What's left is a salty material. It's not sodium chloride like we used to. It's magnesium salt and a bunch of other things. But so she would have just been a stump there, you know, and I'm sure she wasn't standing erect. She would have probably been kind of leaned over, maybe even slumped down, whatever. But there was enough that people said, well, that looks like that looks like a person. That could have been a person. And you know, Lot probably came back. Well, we don't know. But anyway, that's what the Bible talks about. So we had a colleague with Dr. Collins. We had a colleague that was watching in the late 90s, early 2000s, something, reading stuff, and he called Collins and said, you know, going back to Genesis 19, it sounds to me like an airburst happened over el-Hammam. And Collins said, what's an airburst? And so an airburst is when some kind of a celestial material, basically it's an asteroid or a meteorite, comes into the Earth's surface, and you know, we're familiar with those now. They blow up, and they're coming in so fast, and they hit the Earth's atmosphere, and it's just too much friction, and they blow into pieces. And when they blow into pieces, there's this percussion blast of hot air, then another percussion blast of super pressure, and between them, anything that's close, it would have just wiped them out. And based on what the scientists, well, let me just say that. So we were digging there. We began to learn about airbursts. We started showing some of our material to scientists back at the Sandia Labs in Albuquerque, and they started saying, this is really different. This is not, you can't do this in this ancient piece of pottery, 4,000 years old. You can't, there's nothing on earth that can produce what just happened, what we see on this piece of pottery. This came from the sky. And then, you know, this airburst thing. So there's a group of scientists that have been working on airbursts for the last 25, 30 years. And this group of scientists wrote this paper in 2021, September 2021. A Tunguska-sized airburst destroyed el-Hammam, a Middle Bronze Age city in the Jordan Valley near the Dead Sea. And this became, within 5 years, they said probably the most read scientific paper in the history of read scientific papers. Well, that means people were interested, but it also means up until 15 years ago, you had to buy a journal to read stuff like this. And today you can find it on the internet open source. And it's a wonderful gift to students and scholars to have access to so much stuff. So this was an open source article that was published, and they got this started, letting us see what the possibilities are, and then they did a second article that came out this last year. So let me just run through this with you now. So airburst impact events in Earth's history. There's 7 of them that are significant. Do any of these places, you recognize anything there? Anybody? Okay, el-Hammam. What else? What? Great Lake. Yes. The North American Great Lakes. The archaeologists there think they had something similar. You're familiar with any of these others? The one in Siberia, the Tunguska, Siberia. This is the famous one in 1908. It was the most powerful blast that we know of, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in a little bit. I'll just have you note, though, about 1 near-Earth object per year has been detected inside our moon's orbit. So it's between the moon and the Earth, about 1 per year since 2013. 26,000 have been near-Earth objects that have been recorded as of 9/20/21. So it's a phenomenon. And these guys that did this article, they're not really interested in history. They're interested in the present and the future. They're trying to help science, they're trying to get science to help politicians and governments realize the seriousness of this and be planning and thinking about it, because it's only a matter of time before the next one hits big time. A Tunguska or a Tal el-Hammam again. So here's just a little primer. This is not stuff that I'm familiar with. I had to learn it from our science guys. When an atomic or a nuclear bomb blast happens, the first thing is thermal radiation. Now, we think of radiation as all the nuclear stuff, but this is just thermal radiation, heat. Super hot radiant heat emanates from the point of explosion, and they said at Tal el-Hammam it was 2.5 miles above the Earth's surface. It emanates at the speed of light. That's pretty fast. Do you know how fast? I remember this from science class. 186,000 miles a second. I can't even fathom that. 1 second, 186,000 miles. That's how fast light travels. That stuff, that thermal radiation, heat, 186,000 miles a second. So it went from 2.5 miles to Tal el-Hammam in, blink of an eye, just gone, done. There was no chance for anybody to even look and see, because what they were seeing, they were feeling it all at virtually the same moment. It's the speed of light, and it will create spontaneous combustion with organic material within the blast zone. Spontaneous combustion simply means that something that is organic, alive, plants, animals, peoples, just burst into flames. And it would be so hot, it would not even just fire, just disintegrate. So thermal radiation is one of the things that a nuclear atomic bomb explosion does. The second thing, after the thermal radiation at the speed of light, is a shock wave of intense pressure. So the heat goes first, then this pressure traveling at the speed of sound. I had to check that out. I didn't know that one. Anybody know what the speed of sound is? Well, it does. It does do that. Very good. And I forget the parameters. In the Earth's atmosphere at 60 degrees, I think it is. I got it written down here somewhere. That it will go 760 miles per hour. Well, that's really slow compared to the speed of light, isn't it? But that's pretty good. I don't think Gail and our airplane got anywhere close to that when we were flying over here. Okay, and this would follow the thermal radiation and demolish buildings, cause severe injuries, and result in destruction over a wider area in a very short period of time. So the thermal heat's going to be in one particular kind of a focused laser beam, and then this other percussion blast is going to spread wider, is what the scientists who study this stuff in general say, and they felt like they saw evidence of such at Tal el-Hammam and in the region. Then the third part is the nuclear radiation, and I'm not going to talk about that because that doesn't relate to our airburst, but that's the third thing. So in an nuclear atomic blast, there's the thermal radiation, there's the shock wave, and then there's the nuclear radiation. That's the radioactive material. Well, with an airburst, everything's the same except no nuclear radiation. All those things are identical. And that's one of the things that we can compare the results of nuclear blasts without the radiation. We can compare those to what we see as the results of airbursts. So a scientific proxy it's an evidence, but it's not direct evidence. To have an airburst, a meteorite or an asteroid destroying the Earth's atmosphere, and to prove it, if you got little chunks of meteorites, you say, okay, that's it. That's what this is. This didn't come from the Earth. It's not volcanic. This is from the sky. So that's the direct evidence of a meteor or meteorite. But there's an awful lot of places where we don't have direct evidence, but we've got what they call proxies or indirect evidence. this is not stuff that is terrestrial. This is not stuff you have on the earth. It only comes from the sky. So if you're finding that stuff around, especially destruction, then you go, this could be an airburst. And so that's what these scientists studied when they looked at all the material on the ground that we had and then in their labs back home. So here's some of the scientific proxies for an airburst. Shocked quartz, tiny fractured sand grains formed under 725,000 psi, that's psi, pounds per square inch. And that would equal, that's 5 gigapascals, and I looked it up one time, but I forgot what it means. But some of you, that would be your world, you know that. You can explain it to me afterwards. But what that equals, that much pressure, is the pressure of 6 U.S. Army Marine M1 Abrams tanks on your thumb. I mean, that's just ridiculous, Stephen, but that's how much pressure it would be. That's what this shock wave does. This isn't heat now. That's the thermal radiation. This is the shock wave. This is what airbursts do, and and atomic blasts do as well. But this is what scientists said they saw evidence of at Tal el-Hammam. Here's another proxy, another evidence. Spherules. They are tiny balls of melted material smaller than airborne dust particles. You can only see them under electron microscopes. So we have a piece of pottery, and we said, would you guys look at this one? And they did, and with an electron microscope, they could see these things that we could not see with the naked eye. These spherules, made of melted material, were vaporized from iron and sand, melted at 2,900 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, iron, what does it take to melt iron? Well, it's 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is even higher to pull all that off. This is something that in the ancient world they could not produce on the earth. Now, we can do this today. We've got furnaces. We can do that kind of stuff today. But they could not do it 3,500 years ago. Thirdly, our pottery and mud bricks was vitrified, liquefied if you would, at temperatures, and you can only do that at above 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, to tell you how hot that is, lava temperatures go as high as 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. This is way hotter. This is 500 degrees hotter than lava. This is, I have trouble with this. It's just so, but this is what scientists say these things do, and they use these evidences because you can't make these proxies, you can't do these things until you have that kind of heat. And so that's what they say. Now, if it didn't relate to a Bible site, we would all be fine with that. But then you relate it to a Bible site, I don't know. So, but that's the deal. Some surface pottery was speckled with tiny melted metallic grains. And here's what they found under electronic microscope. Zirconium silicate. Anybody got zirconium ring on? We used to do that a lot, didn't we? All right. That doesn't melt till 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Platinum melts at 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit. And iridium melts at 4,435 degrees Fahrenheit. So that would mean it got at least as hot as 4,400 degrees at Tal el-Hammam in this airburst event, that first with heat and then second with a pressure blast. And right now, most of this is about heat. Then diamondoids. Now, a diamond comes from organic material. You should know that. And this is diamondoids that are organic material smaller than a flu virus. Well, I know something about flu viruses, but I ain't never seen one. And they said, this is how tiny they are. They are hard as diamonds. That's why they're called diamondoids, formed under the above heat and pressure. Now, that's what they said happens at these airburst sites, and none of these can be produced terrestrially until the 18th century with the Industrial Revolution. So there's no way on earth mankind could pull this off. This was a celestial thing, and of course we think a supernatural thing. These things happen, they do, we know that, but happen right place, right time, that's God. And he took out a city that he said he was going to take out. And now some people say, well, this thing happened and somebody made up a story around it. You know, I suppose it could be, but there's too many other things in the Bible that make this all fit. And that's God. It's who he is, how he rolls. Okay, so I'm going to just take a little side trip to Italy, Herculaneum. You know Herculaneum at all? I have never visited. Anybody ever been there? Ooh, goody. We got to Pompeii, but we never got to Herculaneum. And I do want to very much to go. This is Herculaneum, buried under pumice. These are structures that they've uncovered. And in this structure, there was a bed. There's a dude. Can you see his head? There's a bed and a head and chest. And at his head, inside the skull, they found this. They've never seen anything like this anywhere. Scientists, in fact, they put it in a drawer for about 20 years. They just didn't know what to do with it. I guess not a drawer. They put it away properly, but they left it. They didn't know what to do. And then in the last 5 years, folks went back and started looking at it with all of the new technology. And our new technology is fantastic. Some of you work in some of these industries, and it's just amazing what you can help us know and understand about the current world as well as the ancient world. Well, just in a nutshell, this vitrified human brain at Herculaneum from 79 AD, the Vesuvius eruption, it had to happen at 950 degrees Fahrenheit, quickly, super hot ash cloud before the pumice and all the other stuff. This is one of those superheated ash clouds that go off first, and then immediately these ash clouds dissipate. So the scientists said the only way this could happen, a flash burst, and then immediately began to cool. Now that's the same kind of thing we have with the air bursts, but this came from the volcano. But that's only 950 degrees. Human brains liquefy at 950 degrees. We're up over 4,400 degrees with what we saw from el-Hammam. That's what that airburst thing was all about. So I'm trying to convince you about airbursts and maybe it relates to el-Hammam. So here's trying to make my case. So what we think is a space rock, asteroid or meteorite. Asteroids often have ice with them, but they have metals as well. Meteorites have metals, of course, and there's some earth, celestial dust and stuff, but that connects. But that's basically what they are. So our space rock shows up in Earth's atmosphere. The scientists estimated 38,000 miles per second. That's 5 times faster than the speed of sound. Not speed of light, but speed of sound. That's fast and quick. And so it's going to break up. It explodes about 2.5 miles above the ground. The explosion is 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima atomic bomb. Yes, ma'am.
Is it 38,000 miles per second or 38,000 miles per hour?
Miles per hour.
It is miles.
Yeah, it was hour. Yeah. That's pretty fast. 5 times faster than the speed of sound. So anyway, the Hiroshima. So this is way bigger than what happened at Hiroshima. And I'm not minimizing what happened at Hiroshima, but this is way bigger. 1,000 times bigger. Thermal radiation heated up to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Clothing, wood caught fire. Swords and spears and mud bricks and pottery began to melt. Volcanic lava only gets to 2200. And that victim's brain was vitrified at 950. And then seconds after the shock wave, traveling at the speed of sound, smashed into the city, the most powerful tornado, and just as a comparison, the most powerful tornado winds on record were 318 miles per hour. This is way more than double. The damage, you know what tornadoes can do. This is the most powerful one we know, and this is more than double that. That's what this shock wave did when it hit the city of Tal el-Hammam, and this is what they would do wherever. The big thing about Tal el-Hammam is it's the first time an urban area, a city, had ever been hit by one of these. They've hit it in the desert, in the forest, but never near a city. So, just a sort of final thing. A kiloton is 1,000 metric tons of TNT. Now, I don't really know what that means, except that would be a lot of banging and booming and destruction. That's all I can understand. And so, Hiroshima had 15 kilotons. Chelyabinsk in Russia, that happened in 2013. That was 500. That was way bigger than Hiroshima. Do you remember that, Chelyabinsk? Do you remember that one? It didn't kill hardly anybody, but it really messed up a section of Russia. Modern nuclear bombs, 1,000 kilotons. Now, 1 kiloton is 1,000 metric tons of TNT. This is 1,000 of those. The Tunguska airburst was 10,000 to 15,000 kilotons, way more than a modern nuclear bomb, and the Tal el-Hammam was equal to that airblast, according to the scientists that studied this stuff. So, Tal el-Hammam's airburst, all that stuff we've talked about, that's it. Okay. Whoops, what happened here? Okay, oh, there we go. So the air blast, the blast zone, we think was this, the scientists think, it was this size. That's the size of the modern city of Rome today. You see what Tal el-Hammam is, you see what Jericho is, see where the north end of the Dead Sea is, Jordan Valley north. So, the Bible says the Lord rained down molten stuff and burning stuff on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord, from the heavens. And that's all we got.